It's funny though, because when you said that, when I first moved to Key West, it was the same thing. That smell would happen at the end of my street where I grew up on the Cape. And so I'd smell it and I'd be like, ew, aw. Like,
yes, exactly.
And that's and it can be an ew and an aw. Like,
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, come and join the conversation in our Facebook group.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, all right.
Frog in my throat to begin with. Allergy. We're in the end of August. I don't know when this is going to drop. We're actually ahead of the game. Go us.
Yay.
Like, yay. But the wind changed, like, quite literally, and like the allergies have come in the last couple of days, so don't mind me if I sound a little froggy on and off.
Yeah, it's an interesting time of year. I've had a lot of challenges with those as well. I was actually going to start off by saying, if you were listening a couple of episodes ago, we shared about how I made a post that freaked out Serena, and guess what? I did it again. We got
like
on the
bi-weekly thing all of a sudden.
Right. I mean, it's a good thing because obviously it means that
like
things are progressing in terms of. Yeah, it's a good thing because obviously things are progressing in terms of content. But it was so funny because we got on the online to record today, and she was like, "Oh, it's like you've got some exciting things going on." And I was like, "Oh wow, that was like 4 days ago. That's like another lifetime." Like I've moved on since then because I went to our very first Florida Keys TEDx event at the weekend, which was very exciting to see that. Like, and it was so funny because I was saying to people when I was there, like I was listening to TED Talks before they were cool. Like it's not like. I was involved in the TED world way before most people even knew what TED was.
I remember sitting on it's weird. I can actually remember the first time we were like, oh yeah, a TED event or a TED Talk. And I was like, oh, who?
A what?
Who's talking? And you're like, no, a TED Talk. You've never heard of a
like
TED Talk? And I'm like, have not heard of a TED Talk. And now it's a whole
Right?
world I'm exposed to. And it's a whole like you hear people talking about like TED Talks and TEDx events and these things, and they throw it out in general conversation. It's like amazing how quickly things become like
they haven't changed. Yeah, it was funny because I was actually involved in helping to organize a TEDx event in Las Vegas probably, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 years ago. And I was in the UK at the time. I was doing something behind the scenes. So yeah, so TED is like, I wouldn't say old hat to me, like in the sense that like I've known about TED for such a long time and I've been interested in TED for such a long time. And it was so funny because I've actually had a version of a TED Talk written for about 4 years now. And the only reason that we haven't progressed
with longer than 4 years, hasn't it?
No, I've been working on it since way before that, but like it was okay. When I was in the UK, I was working with somebody to get the TED Talk written, and there is a version of it. It's not finished by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been working. Yeah, I mean, I've been working on it for way longer than that, but yeah, it was. There's a version of it that I could have delivered like 4 years ago, but we also knew that we wanted to make sure that the behind the scenes was done on the universal needs stuff, so that everything was accessible, so that if people resonated with what we shared in the TED Talk, that they could immediately get benefit in a way that, I mean, we've always said that as and when the program goes live online, it's going to be available on a sliding scale payment basis, so that, that reminds me, I have another update for you on something. I'm sorry, I'm just letting Serena know. I had a conversation with somebody last night that I was like, oh, there's something else I need to update. But this is an important one, so I don't to like make a note to remember that. Just hope that I can remember by the time we get to the end of recording this episode what I was going to update you on.
I'll remember because it's the only thing I'm going to think of through the entire episode. I'll be like, I wonder what it was. Is it about this? Is it about this? Is it about this?
Who knows? Who knows? So yeah, I was, and obviously we want to make sure that the content is fully accessible. I mean, obviously there's an element of accessibility via the podcast, but the actual content is accessible before we do the TED Talk, so that people can immediately get access to the kind of content of the universal needs. So I've been working on it for quite some time, and then I went to this TED event and I was like, oh, there's a second one, and you can do more than one TEDx talk. You just have to, they each have to be unique ideas, which these are. And I was like, oh yeah, I got home from the TED event and I was laying there. I was exhausted because I was awake super early that night, and I was lying in bed and my brain starts formulating this TED Talk, and I'm like, well, shit. So, and it was so funny. I was like resisting it initially. I was like lying there and I'm like, nope, I'm not getting up. I'm not getting up. I'm like, and then a ding went off on my laptop. And normally I put my laptop on silent when I go to sleep, and I'm like, that's a sign from the universe. Get the fuck up and get writing, apparently. So I was working until about 2 a.m. in the morning. And we've got pretty much the main structure of the second TED Talk, whether it actually gets delivered first or second, who knows? Also done. And then the following morning, the thoughts around the kind of unique idea from that TED Talk made me realize, hold on a second, there's something in the program that needs to be refined and updated. And I did my usual, let's post how excited I am about this on Facebook and tag Serena, so it scared the crap out of her. And she goes, now what the hell has she come up with? As is my way. But it was funny. Like, Serena's like, so there's exciting things happening. I'm like, wait, what? Exciting thing? This is part of the reason that I post it on Facebook, because there's a delay between when it happens. And otherwise I could have completely forgotten to update Serena about it, because she came on and said that. And I was like, wait, what? Oh yeah, no, that was Sunday. It's Wednesday now. That's 4 days ago. Like, a lifetime has happened between now and then.
Welcome to the time warp.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. So yeah, just also a little bit of a like teaser for the fact that there is not one but 2 TED Talks on the horizon. By the time we actually get to deliver one, I think we'll probably have 12. It'll be like the podcast, like there'll be 12 God. In the bank ready to deliver.
All of a sudden we hit the mainstream like a fire hose, right? And here are all the things we've been working on.
Here's all the things, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. Really wouldn't surprise me. And it's funny, actually, this kind of segues kind of nicely onto what we're talking about today, because when we started to discuss today's topic, Serena was like, haven't we already done an episode on this? And I'm like, I don't think we have. We've talked about this kind of in the context of other things a lot, but we haven't done an actual episode where we focus specifically on talking about nervous system regulation, about the importance of it, and also where it sits in the meeting of our needs. And we went through the episode guide and we were searching for all the things that we might want to search for. And I'm like, well, we talked about it in the context. We did an episode on this, and then we went back and went, actually, we didn't do an episode on that either. We just talked about that on an episode about something else. So yes, I mean, we may need to go back and review the episodes we've recorded and go, maybe there's a few that we've missed that we should do actual episodes about, because I do think that when it comes to nervous system regulation, I mean, 10 years ago, that wasn't a term that your average person was familiar with, much less really would use.
I mean, 5 years ago, like, let's be honest, yeah. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that's kind of come up as, and I hate, like, it's not a buzzword. Like, nervous system regulation is a legitimate thing. It's not a buzzword, but people are like, it's one of those things, like, you start hearing it and it's like, oh, nervous system regulation. Oh, do this for your nervous system. And it is. It's something that's becoming a lot more mainstream, which is a good thing, because it is so important. Like, the fact that how long have you been classifying it as that? Has it been since before we met? Because I know there was a point in my life, like, more recently than not, that this wasn't, I was like, what are you, and when she came to me with VU breathing, I'm like, what the hell are you talking? What are you doing? And then it's like, well,
okay. I think I think it's a little bit like when we talked about, because one of the things that I said, well, we've done an episode where we talked about somatics and the importance of somatic processing and those sorts of things. We hadn't actually done an episode on that. We just talked about that in the context of another topic. So we'll probably end up doing an episode on that at some point as well. And somatics, I've been aware of in that form for quite some time. I would say a good 10 years. And obviously, and there's an element of somatic exercises that can help with nervous system regulation. And that's the thing. There are these things that are connected. And a lot of the time when you do the kind of work that we do, you want to be speaking and using the terms that people are already using, so they understand, they can latch onto it and go, I know what that is, or I've heard about this. And I think that what's happened is that the nervous system regulation wasn't being kind of commonly used as a term, certainly 5 years ago, on a more mainstream level. And I think that what's happened is that now it's started to become more well known, more widely used, and obviously the flip side of it, nervous system dysregulation. So there's a lot of things that people are talking about and aware of now that are using terminology that I wouldn't have used previously, because I wouldn't be wanting to use, you want to use words that people can understand. And if you use a term that sounds very technical or very jargon related, I mean, a lot of the terms that we use are jargon related. There's also a lot of jargon related terms we don't use because they're not mainstream yet. And we want to make sure people are able to follow what it is that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So I think that what's happened is that there's been a real boost in the last 2 or 3 years, where it's become much more widely known. And I do think that we've got things like TikTok and like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and all those sorts of things, because I think that there are people who are speaking about these things on there, which are making them more widely known. And also it's helping people to identify what's going on. Because I think that, like, if you go back and you look through how people would have described things, like there was a period of time where it would have been described as stress was the buzzword, and it was a buzzword that, I mean, I remember when I actually left one of my corporate positions, I was in an incredibly high stress situation and I was miserable, and I remember when I handed in my my resignation letter, somebody advised me to use the term specifically, like high levels of stress that was causing me like issues outside of my working life and everything. They were like, that's an HR buzzword. As soon as you use that term, they will start to rally. And I got put on gardening leave rather than having to work my resignation period, which was great. I didn't have to work my notice period. I just could chill at home, which was fabulous.
Gardening leave?
They call it gardening leave in the UK. So if you have like a lot, the reason is, I think, is that where a lot of people, I think it started, and I this is a guess, I'm not,
it just sounds pleasant.
Like, we'll look up the etymology of it, right? I think it's because what would happen with gardening leave is that it was done when you have like people in high level positions, like senior positions, that were leaving one role maybe to go and work with a competitor. And so they technically were supposed to give, I don't know, whatever it was, like 90 days notice, but the company no longer wanted them working because they would then know what's going on within that company before they go to a competitive company.
It's like a cool down period.
So you go home and go on gardening leave, as in like, go hang out in your garden for the next 3 monts before you start your new role. That's where I'm guessing it came from. I mean, who knows? We'll have to look it up and
so
see what. Right? It's so funny. It's like, again, never even occurred to me that wasn't a term that was used elsewhere, but apparently it was. So yeah, I got to go. I didn't have a garden at the time, so I just went and hung out at home instead.
Tune in to learn about your needs and new British catchphrases.
Right? Yeah,
as I've been doing the show notes.
Topic.
I mean, it's been like, I think every recording session, there's been something I'm like, excuse me?
Right?
Like bear bugs or bugbears.
Bugbears, yeah. No, not bear bugs. I mean, there probably are those as well. That's not a term I'm familiar with either. That's probably more of a US term. Like the bugbears is the UK version. You have more bears than we do, so maybe the bear bugs are a US thing. So anyway, but because stress was the term, it was the thing that all companies were aware of. It was the thing that, and so, like, when you are stressed, your nervous system is dysregulated. But if I'd said in my resignation letter, I'm dealing with high levels of nervous system dysregulation, they'd have gone, what? It wouldn't have been a term that was kind of common. So I think there are certain phrases that over time get used in certain ways. I think anxiety was one for a long period of time where, yes, you can have medically diagnosed anxiety disorder, but I think we've gone from stress to, there was a period then when anxiety was like the thing that people talked about and everyone kind of understood. If you are anxious, they were dealing with high levels of anxiety, your nervous system is probably going to be dysregulated. And now people are kind of terming it in terms of nervous system dysregulation. So I think that there are phrases that get used in different kind of periods of time that everybody understands what they are. And this is just the latest one that really kind of speaks to what it is that happens when and it's put a needs lens on this. What happens is that when your nervous system is dysregulated, what's happening is that so many of your needs are compromised or have been chronically compromised, compromised over a significant period of time, that what's happening is it is affecting how your nervous system is responding. And what happens is that your nervous system is responding as if it is dealing with a certain level of trauma being one or more of your needs, universal needs being negatively impacted. If you don't know about our 6 different types of trauma, we'll put the link in the show notes to go and find out what we're talking about as far as that. But if I go into that, we'll get sidetracked, and I want to stay on topic. We want to stay focused on this episode. We're talking about nervous system dysregulation and nervous system regulation. And so what's ending up happening in that situation is that one or more of your needs have been compromised, either in a momentary situation or over a chronic period of time, and a sustained period of time. And what's happening then is that your body is going into a trauma response of some description. And again, like people talk about trauma responses, and we've also done an episode on trauma responses, I'm pretty sure. And if not, that's another one we need to add to our list of things to record. I'm pretty sure we've done one on that. We know we've talked about the trauma responses, but if not, we need to make sure we do an episode on that. We thought we'd done this one as well, so who knows? We need to go and check
for everybody involved.
Absolutely. We get surprised as well. It's like part of the neurospicy brain thing. It's like, didn't we do that? No. And then there are times when I'm like, well, we haven't done this one yet. And I'm like, oh, there it is. Apparently we did.
There's been times we've done that. We've been like, oh, we've done 3. Okay.
Cool. Okay. We've covered that now. Moving on. So anyway, so what ends up happening is that you end up dealing with a level of trauma, as in like from a needs perspective, one or more of your needs are compromised, which creates a trauma response. And the trauma response is your body responding, how your body responds to your nervous system being dysregulated. And what happens is that your nervous system goes into a state of panic, and it reacts as if we are at threat, because we are in some ways, because our needs are being compromised. And it's interesting because I think that I remember that saying that like that people talk about like stress and anxiety and nervous system dysregulation in the sense of like, well, like we're still kind of animals at our core, and we react. Our body goes into the reaction it would have done like if we were being chased by a tiger. It doesn't realize that we're not being chased by a tiger anymore, but sometimes it reacts the same way to an email that it would respond previously to being chased by a tiger. Now, interestingly enough, I think that this is a bit of a it's a little bit misleading, because I think what somebody's trying to say when they say that is that, oh, your life was at threat if you were being chased by a tiger, and your body is reacting to an email as if your life is at threat. Well, the interesting thing is that these days your life could be under threat from an email, as in like if you believe that your job is under threat, and therefore your ability to keep your home, to be able to put food on the table, to be able to pay for your healthcare, if all of those things are connected to the outcome of said email, there is still a huge threat to you and your survival. And that's what's happening, is that our nervous system is reacting in a way that is saying, we may think that that something's going to threaten our survival in some way, shape or form, and we are reacting accordingly. Now, the challenge is that there are, and when we come to talking about nervous system dysregulation, we're going to talk about it from a little, probably more of a neurotypical perspective today, because there are certain neurodivergent people with different neurodivergencies who experience stimulus in different ways, and their nervous system regulation works in a different, that regulation and dysregulation happens in a different way to somebody who is dealing with things from a neurotypical perspective. What I will say, though, is what we are saying about, we're going to approach it more from a kind of neurotypical perspective, but what we're saying about nervous system regulation absolutely applies across the board. So, and the first and most fundamental thing I think it's really important to say is that nervous system regulation is one of the ways that we meet our foundation function needs. So quick overview of the needs, because we haven't done this in a hot second. So let's give a little mini overview of that, and we'll put a link to the show notes where we go into this in more detail. Yeah, right. We haven't talked about this for a while. As you may or may not know, we have 12 universal needs. Don't know why I put I showed 6 fingers, but I was saying that there are 12 universal needs. Who the hell knows? Only I do, and even I don't know. There are 12 universal needs, and those 12 universal needs fall into 4 different groups, and the 4 different groups correspond to the 4 different parts of a tree. So you've got the roots of your tree, which is your survival needs. They are the needs that are critical to your survival. Unsurprisingly, that's why they're called the survival needs. You've then got the trunk of the tree, which is your intrinsic needs. So these are the needs that relate to your internal well-being. So your survival needs, the roots of the tree, those are your foundation, and the trunk of the tree, your intrinsic needs, those are your core. So once you have your foundation and your core are well supported, then you can move up to the next level of needs, or you have more capacity to be able to focus on the next level of needs, which is the branches of the tree. Those are the expansive needs. So those are the needs that relate more to your interconnection with the outside world, and kind of growing and expanding and all those sorts of things. And then you've got the leaves and the fruit of the tree, and those are your enriching needs. So once you've got all those other things are being taken care of, you can focus on the enriching needs, which are the needs that give you a deeper experience of yourself and a deeper experience of life. So that's your kind of quick, I was going to say 10-second summary. It probably wasn't 10 seconds, but quick overview of the needs in a nutshell kind of thing. But the most important thing to realize when we are talking about our survival needs is the first need that sits on the universal needs tree is our foundation function need. And that is the tap root of our tree. If you don't know what a tap root is, it is the first and most important root on in any plant structure that has a taproot. What it does is it drops down lower than all of the other roots to provide security. So it basically anchors the tree. It also goes down to find nutrition. So it will go down to seek out water and nutrients in the soil. And it is it's the tree that basically provides the means for it's the root, that provides the means for the tree to get the nourishment that it can then focus on expanding and developing the root system and growing the shoots and the trunk and the leaves and the branches and the fruit and all the other stuff. So the taproot's the most important one. And the taproot is our foundation function need. Now, why is it called the foundation function need? It is called the foundation function need because it is they are the foundational needs which you absolutely need to be able to survive, and they are the needs that you need to have met in order to be able to function. A lot of people forget that second part. Yes, they are the foundational needs. We know that they are important. I mean, and when we're talking about things like hydration, nutrition, rest, being able to excrete things from our bodies. So like toxicity management, I suppose, in the body, movement, exercise, like healthcare, like those sorts of, all of these things that relate, a lot of them, they relate to our physical well-being. There are a couple that sit slightly outside of that, but these are the things. And when you think about like foundational needs, most people go, oh yes, food, drink, water. Apparently water is a category all of its own now. Like nutrition, rest, like people are, like, those are the ones that most people could probably come up with a fairly decent understanding of what they are without much help from us. Although there are some in there that would surprise you and you may not necessarily come up with on your own. But they don't think of them in the context of these are the things that we need to be able to function. And when we talk about functioning, we talk about functioning in a effective way. It reminds me, I saw a video a while ago, like reminding you that if you're talking about your capacity to do something, capacity is what you're able to do without compromising your physical, mental, emotional resources. If you can push yourself to do it, but that's not within your capacity because you're draining those other things in order to be able to do it. Same thing is true with the what you need to be able to function. If you could get by without it, that's not functioning. That is coping. It is, a lot of the time it is, there's a bunch of other things it could be as well, but we want avoiding rabbit holes. I'm tiptoeing around them and dancing through them as best I can. But when we're talking about things to be able to function, it's like, in order to be able to function in a effective way, in a way that doesn't compromise ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, these are the things that we need. And I think the problem is a lot of people are coping with a dysregulated nervous system, i.e., and most of those people would think, oh, I'm able to function with a dysregulated nervous system. That's not functioning, that's coping. Those are two very different things. Functioning.
I used to kind of take pride in some of the dysregulation in my nervous system. Like, like I think that I'm like, oh, I don't have to go pee. Like I'm like a camel. I can just hold it forever. Yeah. What's that doing to your body, Serena?
Like, and the thing about it is, so that is one of your foundation, like peeing is one of your foundation function needs. But the not peeing is the thing that's probably going to dysregulate your nervous system. Like needing to pee isn't nervous system dysregulation, but the compromise to our body, and our body goes into a kind of panic mode of like, what's happening? Like we need to pee and we're not peeing. Why are we not peeing? There must be a reason that we're not peeing. What is it that we're not aware of? There must be some sort of threat that's stopping us from peeing. No, it's because I'm still scrolling on TikTok after 3 hours, or I'm trying to finish writing an email. It's like, but because of that, our internal system gets the message that there is a problem, and it starts to react to that problem. And what ends up happening is that when we talk about the kind of neurodivergent thing, is that different things will indicate to the nervous system that there's a problem when you are neurodivergent versus neurotypical. So I think that this is one of those things that in order to be able to function, not cope, function, our nervous system needs to be regulated. Part of the problem, though, is that most people are operating with a dysregulated nervous system to some extent or another. It's not either it's regulated or it's unregulated. There is a spectrum. Like you could be dealing with some level of nervous system dysregulation, and then you could be dealing with extreme nervous system dysregulation. And I think it's a little bit like trauma in a way, in the sense that people only think of trauma as these extreme things. They don't think about all of the small little things that are traumatic to our nervous system. And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and listen to the trauma episodes. And as a result, we don't think about it as being trauma. So we don't address it as trauma. We don't focus on it. We don't heal it. We don't support it as if it was trauma. Same thing with nervous system regulation. Like if we're a little bit dysregulated, I can cope with that. That's fine. And so we don't really address it in the same way that we would if we recognize it as nervous system regulation. What then ends up happening is that we are a little dysregulated and we don't address it. So then we get a further impact. Oh, she says, as the microphone also gets an impact as I smack it with my hand. It gets a further impact, which means our nervous system gets more dysregulated. And we go, oh, it's fine, I'll manage. And then we get another impact and it gets more dysregulated. And before we know it, like our internal nervous system is like, alarms blaring, red lights flashing, like there's warnings coming over the tannoy system, like danger, we're in trouble, take cover kind of thing. And we're like, well, that was a stressful response to an email. It's like, and it's not just that one thing, it's because we haven't addressed all the other little things on the journey to get there. And because we are living in a very stressful society and a stressful time, there's so much going on in the world that is creating stress, like cost of living increases and things that are happening on a national level or a global level that are causing people to be concerned. What ends up happening is that we're so used to having a certain level of nervous system dysregulation, we don't know what a regulated nervous system feels like. That laugh felt
true.
Meaningful. Do we resonate with this in some way, shape, or form, Serena?
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I mean, it is hard to have a completely regulated nervous system in
current times.
In current times.
Yes,
it really is. It's possible. It is possible.
Mm-hmm.
There have been moments where I'm like, huh, okay, like where it's moments where everything just feels totally in alignment, and it's like I never realized what the small you say just one small thing, but like what those
I've heard that somewhere recently.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we'll throw the link in the show notes for you. You were talking about how, we cope and then it gets compounded, and then we're coping with that and then it gets compounded. It's kind of the same in the opposite end, where like you do one thing and it's like, oh, that feels a little bit better. And then it's like you do one more thing and it's like, oh, and that feels even better. And then you do one more thing and it's like you're slowly regulating the different parts of your nervous system, because like the whole thing is, interconnected and talking to itself. But there are different like areas you can focus on, and sometimes you may, for whatever reason, feel like you have to cope with one thing, but that doesn't mean you should be like, fuck it, like it's all gone to shit and now I'm just gonna be here. Because that's what I used to do. It was like it's either good or it's bad. It's very common. We were talking in one of the last episodes about like two crappy choices aren't necessarily your only choices, or like it's not just this or that. And I have found through my own personal experience that compounding those small regulations has led me to be more like, my nervous system is more regulated on a regular basis, like, and consistently, which I didn't think that was possible. Like, I thought like coping was like, that was what you were doing. Like I said, I was proud. I was like, I'm able to cope so well. And it's like, like,
Yeah. If you have to cope, it's because you've got stuff that you need to cope with. It would be much better if you didn't have the stuff to cope with. And that's the thing, is that like, it's very, very rare that you're going to have a completely regulated nervous system within the current situation for a lot of us. And there's a difference between it being okay, there's these kind of moments of dysregulation where we're kind of stepping a little further into that spectrum, and I'm like in extreme dysregulation, and I'm staying extreme dysregulation consistently, or I maybe come into the middle and then I slip back down, and I come into the middle, I slip back down. And it's like there is a possibility of creating a foundation that supports our nervous system regulation. And I think we're probably going to get to that in the next episode. We were debating whether it was going to happen in today's episode or the next one, but based on timings currently and the things we still have to discuss, I'm going to make a call and say we're going to make that our next episode. But before we get to that point, it's really important to recognize, because nervous system regulation is part of our foundation functioning, it is really important for us to know how to regulate our nervous system. It's also important to recognize that nervous system regulation is one of the ways that we meet our needs. And so the ways that we are going to regulate our nervous system is going to vary from person to person. What works for one person may not work for another one. A great example of this is meditation. So meditation could be a great way of a great tool for nervous system regulation for some people. But we also know that actually for a long time, meditation was like marketed as this I think the term's panacea, like this, like one thing cures all, like everybody should do it and everybody will benefit from it. And it's one of the things that is really important for us when it comes to universal needs is not to be like, this is it, this is the answer, it's going to cure everything, it's going to work for everybody. Like, because there are always going to be people who sit outside of the norm. And being able to say this works for everybody when you've only tried it on a handful of people when it comes to like meditation, that's ridiculous. Like, just because it works for one group of people doesn't mean to say it will work for everybody. There are some people for whom meditation actually makes things worse. It makes their nervous system more dysregulated. It makes them dissociated. It can actually add to the stress that goes on in their nervous system. And so, and it's really important for us to recognize that it's just because something works for one person doesn't mean it will automatically work for everybody. Just because it works for some people doesn't mean to say it's going to work for a group bigger than that. It's important to find the things that work for you. So if meditation is something that helps to calm down your nervous system, and one of the ways that you can kind of tell that your nervous system is more regulated is when you feel calm within yourself, not just and that can be physically calm, it can be emotionally calm, it can be mentally calm. Like that sort of, the calmer you feel internally, or the calmer you experience your internal system. And obviously different people have issues with proprioception, being able to kind of feel internally. Different people have different issues with being able to necessarily be able to sense what's going on inside their body. So this may be a little bit more difficult. There might be other indicators that would be helpful in that situation. But if you are able to kind of feel within your body, like feel physical things within your body, feel emotional things within your body, the calmer you feel, the more likely it is that your nervous system is regulated. And what will end up happening is that your heart rate is going to come down, your blood pressure will reduce, and even out to a kind of more normal blood pressure. And what ends up happening is that as what happens is your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, which is the part of your nervous system that is related to rest and digest. So it's the things that it's the part of your nervous system that gets activated when you sleep and when you're digesting, which is a lot of the reason we tend to find that after a big meal we all start yawning and be like, oh, can I just go and have a nap now, please? That's because that's the part of your nervous system that is activated during that time. And so there are lots of different ways of doing it, and it's important to find the ways that work for you. There are 1,001, there's probably 1,000,001 videos, articles out there on things you can do to help regulate your nervous system. We're going to give you some thoughts and suggestions today. We are not going to cover everything. One, it's not possible to cover everything. Two, it's important that if the things that we're talking about today don't resonate with you, that you know there are other ways out there, so you can start doing your own research in order to find the ways that specifically are going to speak to your nervous system. So I think that, and again, like using meditation as a kind of example here, even the ways that you meditate. So you might be somebody who would get benefit from meditation, but there are different forms of meditation, and the different forms of meditation may support your nervous system versus not. So for example, a lot of the time, like people think of meditating as just sitting still and getting quiet and doing nothing and being nothing and thinking nothing and all those sorts of things. It's not how some people do it. It's not how I particularly approach it. But still, meditation can work for some people. Other people need a moving meditation of sorts. Like there are different movement meditations that you can do. There are other people who get into a meditative state through doing certain actions. So some people might get into a meditative state through walking, through dancing, through, and these are all things that can help to regulate our nervous system. There are things such as one of the great things that you can do is find ways of supporting your vagus nerve. We've talked about the vagus nerve on multiple previous podcast episodes. I think that's the reason we thought we talked about the nervous system, because the two are so so linked to each other. And we will again put the link in the show notes to the episodes where we've talked about the vagus nerve even. And so the vagus nerve vagus basically comes from the word for wanderer. And that's because it is the nerve that kind of wanders throughout the body, and it connects from the brainstem. It comes through a lot of the insides of the body, through the internal organs down. And so it connects a lot of the body. And when you do things to stimulate and tone your vagus nerve, those are things that are going to help activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and they will help with nervous system regulation as a result. So you have things like we've talked about VU breathing on previous episodes. Any kind of deep breathing will actually support your vagus nerve to some degree or another. There's also things like box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold out for 4, breathe in for 4, kind of carry on like that. Before you do any kind of breathing, important to check and make sure that you don't have any conditions that would make that problematic. If you're concerned, obviously consult your physician or GP or MD or whoever. Consult somebody who knows about these things, who can advise you if it's a good idea. But there are other things you can do, like simply just laying on a bed and like on your side and rocking. Those sorts of things that will things that put pressure on your body. So using a weighted blanket, sometimes like having something which kind of envelops you a little bit more, that kind of feeling snuggly, doing things that are going to touch things, like cuddling a cuddly toy.
Even touching yourself, like just putting some pressure on like different parts of your body, or hugging yourself. Like that's something I never thought to do prior to learning about needs. Claire's like, give yourself a hug. I'm like, that's silly. And then it's like, and you're like, oh, yay me. Yes. But then it's like, and we're not talking about, but like squeezing your body. It's like,
yes.
Oh, like ironically, you kind of feel held when you do that, and your body feels nurtured.
Absolutely.
Funny how that works, huh?
There are things like shaking things out of your body. Like if you're feeling a nervous energy, like shaking is a good way to kind of dispel that.
I find that making the noise of whatever I'm feeling, like that's been one of those ways that has really helped me. And one of the ways I've actually kind of helped people and not even realize it. Like there was one specific instance that I remember that I was at a festival and somebody was having a moment and they just couldn't cope, and you could see that they couldn't cope.
Right.
And they were like just tensed up, holding everything. And I'm like, whatever it is, make that sound. And she just kind of looked at me and I was like, make that sound. And it was a sound, like it wasn't like anything I had ever heard before. And she's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that was like, that was being held in there. And it's like just doing something like it, the nervous system regulation can be so simple, if it's so important. Like, I feel like the things that are often help us the most can be, I mean, well, shit, it really is that simple. And we're like, that it will never work. Like, that's not going to do any, like, I feel so dysregulated. Giving myself a hug is not going to work, not going to help. And that's like the worst thing we can do for ourselves, is being like, I'm not going to even try it because nope, this doesn't like, it's not computing with up here. But sometimes with what makes sense up here doesn't always resonate through the body, and vice versa.
Yeah, a lot of the time our brain thinks it knows best. And like, if I can imagine people going, well, I'm not going to make a noise, people are going to think that I'm being weird or something. Rolled up towel or pillow, like rolled up towel, and you make the noise into the rolled up towel. You can do it in the bathroom, put the shower, put a tap on or something, put some music on, so that you're masking the noise. Because I think that what ends up happening is, if you try to make the sound of it, but you're worried about being observed, it can compromise that process. Like, you're not fully going to release it. You're not fully going to make the sound, because sometimes it sounds like guttural. It doesn't sound good. But it's needed. That's the need. That's how you are supporting that part, is because it to be fully kind of verbalized through that sound. And if you hold back, you're not going to get the same benefit to your nervous system as you would have done if you just let it all go. So yeah, towels and pillows, great tools if you want to do that, but aren't sure about disturbing others.
I often take a ride, like when I'm feeling something, I know that I need to kind of like vocalize it out, whether it's, you know, making the sound, yelling, talk. Sometimes I just need to, like, another way to do it is just talking, like just throwing all the noodles that I have, whether they make sense, whether they're related to the pot that I'm trying to put them in. But I'll take a ride and do that quite often, because then there isn't any sort of concern that anybody's going to hear me, that somebody's going to walk up, that, you know, like there's none of that outside influential concern that, you know,
well, and there's a certain amount of privilege in being able to do that. Like I don't have a car, so I can't go and just take a ride. I mean, I can, but I mean, I live on a 2x4 mile island with a bunch of other people. Trying to find somewhere where there isn't anybody, it's not always the easiest thing to do. Now, I don't care about making sound as long as I'm not disturbing other people and negatively impacting other people. I'm quite happy to go to the beach and make weird noises. And I mean, it's Key West. I'm probably not the only one doing that, quite frankly. There's probably a bunch of us.
All of a sudden, there's a noise band that forms, and it's the new big thing. Right? How did that start? Well, I was feeling some things.
Yeah, absolutely. Another important one is allowing yourself to cry. Because interestingly, the tears that come when we are just trying to like moisten our eyes, or we're trying to get something like a piece of glitter out of our eyes, the chemical makeup of those tears versus the tears that come when we shed emotion, when we're expressing emotion, are different. Like the chemical composition of them is different, because when we are releasing tears, we are actually releasing some of the toxins and the things that we're releasing that are in our nervous system. So by crying, we are literally getting them out of our nervous system, which enables us to regulate. There's a reason we feel better after a good cry. We might feel exhausted, but we feel better because we've literally got that stuff out of our system.
It's the same thing with sweating, like, you know, doing something like, whether it's a workout or just anything that gets you to perspire. It's that same kind of natural detoxing of like getting the shit out.
Like, absolutely. Another good one is like getting into water. Great one. Like it's a huge one for me. I mean, I'm very, very blessed. I live on an island. I don't have to go far to find water I can get into. I literally, there's a pool less than 6 feet from my front door. So, I mean, I have a little bit of privilege when it comes to that, but even just getting into the bath, or putting your feet in some water. The other thing is like getting into the dirt, getting into nature, getting your feet into grass, getting your feet into the sand, getting your feet into the dirt, like grounding your energy and like connecting to nature in some way, shape or form. Like this morning, I've actually rented a car. I'm in the process of moving, though I haven't got anywhere to move to yet. So I'm moving a bunch of furniture this weekend that a friend is very generously, I was like graciously, gratefully, that's neither of those are the right words, generously allowing me to have, so that when I find my new place, I don't have to just sit on the floor. And so I've been helping to move them out. I'm like, I've got boxes and bags all over my room right now. I'm trying to get ready for it. And interestingly enough, when I picked up the car this morning, I could have very easily just taken a straight route back to get back home. And the truth of the matter was, I knew we were recording today. I knew I had a time limit on me, and I'd gone early enough that wasn't an urgent issue, but I also knew I didn't want to be late. And yet when I was on my way back, I was like, yeah, I'm going to drive past the ocean. And I went the long way around, and I drove all the way as far like along the ocean as I could to get back home again, because I knew what it would do for my nervous system. Just being by the water, just seeing the water, can make a huge difference. Like, I mean, Serena's the first one. Like, if I'm having a stressful time of it, if my nervous system is dysregulated, she's like, get in the water. Like, find some water. Get in water of any description. Submerge in water. Get yourself into the water. That's the thing that's going to help.
When you're saying like just driving by the ocean, it kind of triggered smells. Like going outside, like, because I'm in an area where like in Maine, like you can smell the ocean, and growing up, like there's certain ocean smells in certain areas, and I was like, oh, this. In the second like I breathed in that smell, like my body was just like and it's the same thing when we go hiking, like breathing in the fresh air. Got like, this is kind of a little off one, but for some it brings me comfort, so there's no judgment. Is fresh baked bread. Like if I can go somewhere and just like take in like the smell of fresh bread
now. Just, like, is there a bakery near?
Sorry. Now we're back on food. But like it can be that simple to just be like, oh, absolutely. That feels good. That feels good to my olfactory sense.
Right. If you don't know what that means, olfactory is like the sense of smell. That's what that means. And interestingly enough, it doesn't have to be a nice smell. This is an interesting one. So there are some things which are nice smells that really do it for me. So like if I'm having a bit of nervous system dysregulation, I will burn incense. It's one of the things that, again, immediately makes me feel good. And the interesting thing is, it's also a lot of these things, they are senses that link to a place where we feel safe, because ultimately our nervous system is things that support our nervous system regulation are the things that make us feel safe. When we feel safe, our nervous system is going to be more regulated. When we feel unsafe, our nervous system is going to be dysregulated. So the foundation function need and our security need, which is the next need on the universal needs tree, these two work in tandem when it comes to this. So what the things that also will support our nervous systems are things that will remind us of times, of people or places that make us feel safe, no matter what those are, as in what the triggers are. So I'll give you a great example. So I as a lot of people know, I got stuck in the UK when COVID happened and couldn't get back to my little island paradise and all the people who I love who lived here. Lived here. Not all of them still live here. Not saying anything about anyone in particular. I mean, in fairness, it could be any one of a number of people.
Oh. It's me.
Yeah. So I couldn't get back here. And obviously we were going through the pandemic. In terms of trauma, in terms of stress, in terms of nervous system dysregulation, because a lot of us feeling unsafe, a lot of our needs were compromised, a lot of us were dealing with unregulated nervous systems or more dysregulation than we were used to. It was one of the ways in which we knew that our work was really important, because we were managing way better through that than your average person was, because we knew how to meet our needs. And we're going to come to that in a second. We'll loop back. But we were in a situation that felt very unsafe, and I was dealing with like some challenges as a result of that. I got stuck in the UK for 18 months, and obviously there were benefits. I got to see my family, which was nice. But I really wanted to get back to my little island paradise, because this is the place where I feel at home, where I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel more myself. More able to be my full self. I've got more people here who I care about. I've obviously got people in the UK that I care about, but there are more of them in this like tiny little island. So I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. We were at a point in time where we were not able to fly from the UK to the US. We weren't able to do that. There was a travel ban on us being able to do so. The travel ban, what it said was that you weren't allowed to fly into the US if you've been in any one of these places for 14 days, in the 14 days before you entered the US. So I decided I was going to come back via Mexico. So what I did was I planned a 17-day trip to Mexico to make sure I was definitely well outside of those 14 days. And I went and hung out in a villa by a pool or on a beach for a couple of weeks in Mexico. It was fantastic. I loved it. But the interesting thing was, when there were salt ponds and mangroves in the area that I was in Mexico. And there are salt ponds and mangroves in Key West. Now, what can end up happening is that as a result of that and warm temperatures, depending on the time of year that you're there and everything, you can get this really strong, like sulfuric smell. And there are certain areas of this island that when you bike down there in the mornings, you get a strong hit of it. And like your entire system goes, ugh, like it doesn't feel, it's not like a pleasant smell. And it's like, no, I want to get to a place where I don't smell this. So there's enough wind that's being carried away. Now, the interesting thing was when I got to Mexico, I smelled that and my entire nervous system went, home. Not a pleasant smell, but it still helped to regulate my nervous system. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you haven't got to go out and buy a Chanel number 5. I mean, if your gran used to have Chanel number 5 and she was someone who brought you a lot of comfort, maybe she was, but maybe she made, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some food stuff that most people would go, oh, that's revolting, like jelly deals. I don't know if jelly deals even smell. I've never had them before. It's a British food thing. One of those things. I feel like
haggis must have a scent to it.
I believe it probably does, but because that's kind of Scottish, I'm trying to think of something that's kind of closer to where I am, so I can speak to that, or like tripe or something like that. Like, that is just one of those things that. And I said, I don't know what the smell of that would be, but if it was like that was the smell that always was in the home, like one of the smells, ironically, that makes me feel very comforted is mac and cheese. And the reason for that is because every time we would go and visit my grandparents for the weekend, my grandmother would always make mac and cheese for the night that we arrived. So she would always be standing there with a container of mac and cheese as we walked through the door. So the smell of mac and cheese reminds me of going into their home and being somewhere that I felt warm and safe and loved. Ironically, I also get the same experience with vine ripened tomatoes. When you can smell tomato vines, because my other grandfather on my other side had a greenhouse and he used to grow his own tomatoes. So when you walked into the greenhouse, you could smell the vines of the tomatoes. So when I smell the vines of the tomatoes, it reminds me of being at their house, of feeling safe, of feeling loved. And these are all things that have got an association that your nervous system is going to say, I'm safe. Mm-hmm. I'm okay. I'm in a place where things are good. Now, we're going to get onto a kind of flip side of this in a second. Actually, no, I'm going to talk about this in the next episode. I just suddenly realized I'm going to open up another rabbit hole. I think what I'm about to say ties more to what we're going to talk about in the next episode than it does to what we talked about in this episode. So we'll come back next week to hear all about that. But I think that ultimately it's so important to recognize that there are so many people out there going, here's how to regulate your nervous system. And what they're actually sharing is what regulates their nervous system, or what regulates the nervous systems of the people that they've worked with. At no point will I ever say to anybody, here's how to meet your needs. I'll give you ideas to try. I'll give you suggestions. I know things that are very common and work for a lot of people. But I'm never going to say, this is the thing that will meet your needs. I mean, obviously beyond just hydration and nutrition, because oxygen, survival, like literally physically staying alive is kind of helpful when it comes to meeting your needs. So there are some kind of basics that are like absolute universal for everybody. The needs are universal, but the ways of meeting them are unique. And it's so important to find the unique ways of doing this. So just because, like, I've seen it, I've seen so many of these videos on TikTok where it's like, oh, this is how you regulate your nervous system. And some of them really work. And some of them I'm like, meh, not really for me. There's other ways that I think resonate more.
Well, and I always find it interesting. Like, I'm not huge on, I'm not on TikTok unless somebody sends me videos, but like, I don't see as much of this stuff as Claire does in general. But it's often like the 5 things that are going to regulate your nervous system, or it's like put into, you know how I feel about boxes, but put into this little package that's like, these are the things you do. It's these are the 5 things. And it's like, those are 5 things. Those 5
There's
things
some
may
of
help.
Things that you could do.
Like, it's, I don't believe that anywhere on any of those lists is go smell some vine ripened tomatoes. However, that is something that helps Claire. So it's like, you know, we're talking about those choices before. I don't think smelling sulfur is
probably on any of them either.
No, it's funny though, because when you said that, when I first moved to Key West, it was the same thing. That smell would happen at the end of my street where I grew up on the Cape. And so I'd smell it and I'd be like, ew, aw. Like,
yes, exactly.
And that's and it can be an ew and an aw. Like, sometimes eating tuna fish does, like, and that sounds really weird, but like tuna fish sandwiches, if I'm thinking about my Nana while I'm doing it, there is a relaxation that comes over me.
Yes.
Like, it's quite interesting how complex yet simple something like the nervous system is.
Right. And it's like, there's a reason that certain food is called comfort food. It's food that has a comforting, and there's nuance to that. I recognize that there's nuance to what I'm saying here. And like, eating mac and cheese makes me think of my grandmother. Like, there are certain foods that as soon as I eat them, I think about certain times, certain places, certain people. And the second I do that, it's like mashed potato is one of those that I always like. It feels comforting to me because we used to eat a lot of mashed potato when I was a kid. Like, it was one of the things that I ate a lot. And so for me, I'm like, anyone who's close to me knows if I'm not feeling great, if I'm not feeling well, or if I'm not, if I'm a little bummed out, mashed potatoes my go-to. Yeah, it's one of my go-to places.
I could see a lot of people being like, my nervous system is fine. Like, I'm good. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, likely not. Likely not in all of, like,
possibly,
in totality.
Yeah.
But one way that I find that I kind of check in to see where I'm at, if, you know, if I'm feeling a certain way, or even if I'm not, is what's my body doing? Like, is my body, like, we live in tension and we're so tight up all the time. We don't even realize it because we've gotten used to functioning like that. And I don't remember where I heard it, but it's something I often say to help myself and help others with this is relax your shoulders. Take the tongue off the top, the roof of your mouth, and just let your jaw
unclench
relax
your jaw.
And unclench your jaw and just breathe. And the amount of times I do that, and I have to do those steps, and I didn't even realize my body was in like this like tension state, but it's like, okay.
Unclench your stomach muscles as well, because a lot of women get taught to suck in their stomach, so they're actually holding tension pretty consistently, and tension in the body is an indicator that there's a problem. Like your nervous system's going to go, oh, we're tight. Why? There's something must be going on. Like releasing and relaxing everything around your belly and your legs, like your hips is another one. Try stretching your hips a little bit. Do they feel tight? Is it a little sore? Chances are there's some tension being held there. And I think that the other way of really kind of being able to tell, is your nervous system relaxed? Is your nervous system regulated? Is to try some things that are common ways of regulating your nervous system and see how you feel afterwards. Because so often it's like, one of the things I found, I saw, I mean, I've seen lots of these. I know a lot of these because, as I said, we've been doing work in terms of talking about like somatics, i.e. things that are involve your body and processing through your body and moving your body and supporting your body. Those are things also that will tend to support your nervous system. And because I've been doing those sorts of things for a long time now, there's a whole plethora of these that I have that, of ways of supporting my nervous system that I know I can try in any given situation. And I still come across these videos, and some of them I'll be like, okay, let's see what you got for me. And there's one, I actually sent it to Serena a short while ago. She was going through a moment where she was like struggling, and I was like, this is something I've been doing most mornings, and it's like a great, like, starting off the day. Start off by regulating my nervous system before I even, it's a little bit like when we talk about meeting needs. Like, don't go into the situation where your needs are going to be compromised without supporting them ahead of time. Like, support them ahead of time so that if they get compromised, and then you can then support them again afterwards, but don't wait for them to be compromised in order to meet them. So I'm like, okay, I've started to do these. And one of the things that is extraordinary for me, has a huge impact on my nervous system, is lying on my side on my bed and rocking my body. And what I feel physically in my body, what I feel my nervous system releasing and relaxing as I'm doing it. And it's like, oh, wow, that feels good. And like, you don't even necessarily need to put it in terms of nervous system dysregulation, nervous system regulation. Yes, it can be helpful to put those labels on because it helps us to understand what's going on and what it is that we need in those moments. And if you do these things and it feels good, that's a good indicator. It's supporting at least one of your universal needs. And if it feels good, why wouldn't you do it? Like, it's like, we don't have to get into all the jargon around it. But if this is something where it's like, I understand that my nervous system is dysregulated and I want to figure out how to regulate it, these are some of the things that you can try. What I want to say is, I want to come back to something I said at the beginning, is that while we're tending to speak about the neurotypical experience when we're talking about this, what we are saying about nervous system regulation is really important to anybody. So if you are neurodivergent, your nervous system regulation is still one of your foundation function needs. And it's even more important because we're going to probably be dealing with dysregulation more so, not because there's something wrong with us, but because the world is set up in such a way that it is overstimulating and dysregulating to certain groups of people. It's not the issue with the people, the issue is with the system. but what can end up happening is that because we therefore end up maybe dealing with more dysregulation, it's so important to have this like list of go-tos of what are the quick and easy things I can do that I know are going to support my nervous system in those moments. And then maybe that will help me get through to a point where I'm maybe at home, I'm by myself, and I've got the ability to do some deeper things or some more things that will help me to be able to regulate a little bit easier.
I sometimes find that like I'm looking at the time and I'm like I see the rabbit hole like right in front of me. I think we often like compromise ourselves even more by not letting ourselves do the things that could naturally like regulate our nervous system. Where my mind is going is stimming. Like they're like,
yes,
like we fight what feels like it would help us because either social judgment, our own personal judgment. Oh, this is why is tapping on my hand like I should stop that. That's like, what am I doing
that's
there?
not
And
what
it's like,
quote unquote normal people do kind of thing. So we judge ourselves in that respect. Yes.
And we hold ourselves back from the things that can really help us, that because they seem so in there's a perspective that it's needless or it's not helpful or whatever it is. Like,
yeah, it's not normal. I think that's the way it gets phrased, is that it gets viewed that it's not normal, and it's therefore, if it's not what a normal person should, what a quote unquote normal, I mean, what even is a normal person? It's a cycle on the washing machine. But as it's perceived as not what a normal person would do, it's therefore perceived that it's not needed because a normal person wouldn't need to do it. And therefore, if I need to do it, there's something wrong with me, and I need to manage what I'm dealing with in such a way that means that I'm not doing that. And that's where we end up kind of getting caught in ourselves. And actually, stimming is a great example. Like, if you don't know about stimming, it's about it's a self-soothing techniques, or they are self-soothing techniques, and there are so many different ways to stim. It might be you playing with a fidget, it may be like twirling your hair, there are verbal stims, so like saying certain words or singing certain songs. It could be things that are that
I like to touch things.
Yeah, things
like,
that are tactile.
I rub things. And I find that helps regulate my nervous system. Touching something soft, I'm like, yes, oh, that feels nice. Like, and then I rub it, and I rub it until I feel nice.
And as we've said about in previous podcast episodes, this is one of the things that we need to normalize in our society, is as long as you are not compromising your needs, somebody else's needs, or the needs ecosystems, it is nobody's fucking business what you do to support yourself. And stimming is one of those things where there's a lot of judgment about it. There's a lot of self-judgment about it. There's a lot of, oh, I can only do it at this time, in this way, in this situation. And the truth of the matter is, we need to normalize this, so that, because what ends up happening is that we end up then in that on that slippery slope that we talked about at the beginning, when it comes to your nervous system, where it's like, oh, I'm a little bit dysregulated. Actually, if I stimmed at that point, I would regulate my nervous system and I come back to a baseline which feels pretty neutral. Whereas I don't do it, and then something else happens, and then I don't do it some more, and then something else happens and I don't do it some more. And before you know, I'm dealing with extreme dysregulation, which stimming is not going to be enough in that moment in time, because there's so much overwhelm in my internal system that it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of different techniques to get me back to that baseline again. And so I think you're right. I think there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of self-judgment about the things that we do to support our nervous system. And I'm here to tell you that if anyone gives you any shit for the things that you send them to me, I'll have a word with them. Like I can tell them, like, it's like not in a bad way, just in a I'm the expert on the universal needs, and these are things that meet their universal needs. They're not actually compromising you, them, or anybody else. So fuck right off with your judgment. And I kind of joke by saying that, because actually what I would probably do is I would probably start having a conversation with them and find out what are the things that they need that they are not giving them to themselves and not allowing themselves to do, that actually would support their nervous system, which is the reason that they're then judging other people for doing the things that would support theirs. And that's the thing, is that if you notice yourself like judging what other people are doing to support their nervous system regulation, a lot of the time there's a underlying current of kind of envy or jealousy in that, which is like, well, I'm not doing the things that I would like to do to make me feel better, so why the hell should they do it, kind of thing. That's where to start, because actually you could take that as inspiration and go, well, they're doing it, well, what can I do? Like twirling's a great one. Like if you're just somewhere like just twirling and the amount of people that, I mean, I've seen things like where people are out and they're just dancing and they don't care, or they go out and they're singing and they don't care. All of these are things that they're doing to support their needs and support their nervous system.
Is excusing yourself and taking a moment in silence or away from a situation. That was one that took me a while to be like, I would stay in the moments to add, no, I have to stay in it. Now I'm like, okay, like I'm going to the bathroom and I might just sit in the bathroom, might not have to go to the bathroom, just be like, oh, okay. Like, just like those, like, we don't have to sit in the dysregulation.
And the thing is that the better our needs are generally met, and the better our ability to meet our needs for ourselves, the less we are worried about the judgment of others, because we're not dependent on them to get our needs met. A great example of this is actually coming up on a year, which I only know because a friend of mine posted about it. I was like, wow, was that a year ago? That feels in some respects as it was like a couple of weeks ago, and in other ways it feels like it was 5 years ago. I went to a songwriters festival. And I went to see a friend of mine perform, and I went with a group of friends, and I sometimes can get a little bit claustrophobic. I get a bit overwhelmed if it's too peoply, too crowded, too noisy. If it's a combination of all of those things, then that definitely can end up happening. And there were two things that happened on that trip. One was, I remember we were in a bar after the friend of ours had finished playing, and there was a group of us and we were all hanging out together, and the place that they were hanging out in was like, yeah, no, this is too much for me. I don't feel comfortable here. So I went and hung out on the outskirts, and I was still listening to the same band. I was still there. And it was so funny because everyone was like, oh my God, is Claire all right? And the people I was there with, luckily the other situation, which I'm about to tell you about, had already happened. And they were like, oh yeah, she just gets a bit claustrophobic. Like, she's fine. Like, and periodically would someone would come up and chat to me. But I'm like, I didn't need to be with everybody else. I needed to be in a situation where I wasn't going to get dysregulated. And it was better for me to be in that situation. So the other thing that happened was we went to a concert prior to the Songwriters Festival. And again, it was fine like during the warm-up act. But once we got into the main show, oh, wow, was it very peoply, and wow, was it very loud, and wow, was it very like, there was a lot of like people, because obviously it was like people dancing and jumping and everything. And I was getting like people knocking into me, and I got to the point where I was like, yep, no, I don't want to be here anymore. And at the end of the row, there were some empty seats. It was kind of it was open air, but not open air, as in like the back of it was open, but the top of it and the front of it was enclosed. So it was also closer to where the air was. And so I said to the people I was there with, I'm absolutely fine. I'm just feeling a bit claustrophobic. I'm going to go over there. And I'm good. Like, you don't have to worry about me, but I just don't want to be in the thick of this right now. And they were like, okay, I could see it was the first time they'd ever experienced this with me. And they would look over at me and they would be like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm great. And I was like, and I was there and I danced my butt off by myself. And it was so funny because towards the end of that, I remember the last song of the night, I was stood there, and then all of a sudden I turned around and somebody was like here next to me. I was like, oh, hi. And they were like, hi. I was like, first thing out of his mouth was, my boyfriend's over there. I'm like, okay, so you're letting me know you're gay and you're not hitting on me, so you're safe. Okay, cool. I got that. And then he was like, my boyfriend's over there. He was like, I just saw you over here dancing. Could I dance with you, please? And I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it was just the two of us. If it had been like 3,000 people, different situation. Two of us, I'm good with that. So like he stood next to me and we like danced together and everything. And it was so funny because at the end of the night, he took me over to meet his boyfriend and we were chatting and everything. And while we were stood there talking, two of the people that worked at the venue came over to me and said, can I just say, we have had the best time at this event just watching you enjoy yourself by yourself. It was so much fun to watch. And it was so funny. I had visions of being one of those like viral TikTok videos where somebody's just taken a video of somebody and all of a sudden it goes viral. And I'm like, I don't care if that happens. It makes no difference to me. I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was doing it for me and I was enjoying it for me. But the cool thing about it is that I don't think either of those women would ever have done that. But now they've seen me do it. If they were in a position, I think, and I wasn't dancing with anyone except for the last, and that's actually why he came over, because he was like, you're having so much fun. I want to dance with you and have fun with you. And I'm like, sure, by all means, kind of thing. And I think the more that we give ourselves permission, because I don't care what anybody thinks of me. So it doesn't matter if people think, if people think, oh my God, that's amazing. Cool. If people think, oh my God, what a weirdo. cool. If people think I would never, cool. If people think I wish I could do that, cool. It doesn't make any difference to my experience of that, because I don't need those perspectives and those opinions and those judgments to meet my needs, which means that I'm free. I'm much more liberated to do the things that are going to support my needs and my nervous system in any situation. And by doing that, I think what I've done is I've sown the seeds in those people that, well, if I was in that situation, I could do that. And all of a sudden it spreads this kind of ripples of kind of permissibility and this idea of, oh, well, maybe I don't need to wait until somebody's there to dance with me. I don't. And like the amount of times it's like, okay, I saw somebody shared a video the other day, like I dance so other people know they can dance. How many times have you been somewhere and there's nobody dancing and it takes one person to get on the dance floor? Before you know, the dance floor's full. What does that tell you? It tells you everybody in there wants to dance, but they didn't want to be the person dancing alone. And the same is true with other things that support your nervous system and regulate your nervous system, is that chances are the thing that you are going to do, if you are willing to allow other people to see you to do it, it's things other people would want to do as well, but they're not giving themselves permission. So if you can support your needs in such a way that you don't need somebody else's approval to feel that your value need is met, or to meet your personal power need, or to meet your emotional experience expression need, it gives you the freedom to be able to regulate your nervous system in the ways that work for you. And that might just help somebody else to regulate their nervous system in the way that works for them. Anything you want to add before we move on? I mean, we didn't quite slip down the rabbit hole, but I mean, we skipped around it a little bit.
Yeah, we circled a couple of times.
All right, well, that's it for this week. We are going to be following up on this in our next episode. So if you got to this point in this episode, please, 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 please watch or listen to the next episode, because the next episode, we're going to share something that without that, what we've shared today will be pretty useless. It might benefit you a teeny bit, but it's going to, the thing that we're going to share next week is going to be the difference that makes a difference when it comes to nervous system regulation. So please come back and listen to that. We'll be back next week with that. In the meantime, thanks for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And between now and next time, remember, stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us.
And remember, nervous system regulation is one of the ways that you are going to meet your foundation function needs. So find the way of doing it that works for you.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.